I'm double clicking, man.
Okay, we're good, Madam Chair.
Okay. So with that, we'll start the MS-4 subcommittee meeting for today, August 2nd. First item on the agenda, does anyone have any changes to the agenda or public comment that is not on the agenda?
It's kind of embedded in number 3 and 4, but there should be a line item after we go through NRCD and PLUC of overview of draft budget for FY23. No action, but
Okay.
I should walk through it since we.
All right. So we'll do it between 4 and 5. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah.
Sounds good. Anything else? All right, moving on to review the minutes and approval for May 3rd was the last time we met.
Yeah. Let me get them up here. It's been a while since we've met. Okay, May 3rd. Check that attendance list there. You're able to see that. Stream team update. Launch of adopted drain, etc. A lot of bullet points in there. And then update on the advertising, etc. And that was it.
Okay. Does anyone have any changes to the minutes? Hearing none. If not, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from Wednesday, May? That was Wednesday? Oh, Wednesday?
Yeah, it was Wednesday. Oh, maybe it's like Tuesday, probably.
I
Yeah.
just saw that as you flashed it. away
Yeah,
from the
no,
camera.
okay, I'll fix that.
Okay, so that would be a change.
It was a carryover probably from March because we always do
Yes.
the day after town meeting. So.
Yeah. So with that one edit, can I get a motion to approve the May 3rd minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Christine. Can I get a second? Dave? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any abstaining? Any opposed? So moved. All right, moving on to stream team update with Remy and Adelaide. So first we have the recent activities before moving on to the budget, so.
You guys
You
should be
have
able
the
to
floor.
share the screen if you want.
Yep.
Adelaide, I'll let you handle some of the updates before we get into the budget.
You're muted. Oh, there you
Just
go.
finding my page so that I can share my screen. Is that okay if I share my screen as we go through this?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Sweet. It's been a little bit since we met last time, so we have some updates. So for June 30th through July 31st, we worked on invoicing and reporting for this. Obviously, we did order merchandise through PLUC. So we ordered 72 hats with the logo. Asked me about the stream team on them on the back. Just wanted to kind of put the stream team out there and get the conversation going. The people that are going to be wearing these t-shirts, we're hoping can facilitate conversation. We also ordered 72 Rethink Runoff Stream Team hats, which is super exciting. So those will be in tomorrow. We had our biweekly water sampling with the stream team going on this summer. So we just wrapped that up yesterday. I just met with Mel this morning to drop off our last samples for the summer this morning. So that's really exciting. Got those out to DEC. So every other week, collecting for phosphorus and chloride with 2 high flow events. We do have data, so we've been getting lab reports back from Vail, but there's going to be a comprehensive report published in November and December. So we'll share that when that becomes available. Just kind of tracking how each site, we're monitoring 12 different sites, so how each site fluctuates throughout the season. It's particularly interesting to see whenever we get those high flow storm events. So preparing all the sample bottles, also communicating with the town representatives. So I emailed each of the town reps and just kind of felt out what the projects are that they would like to see in each of their individual respective communities. Also passed along that message to our volunteers to garner interest. It seems like I've connected with Christine about putting a rain garden in Williston, also getting signage at the rain garden that was implemented last year in Milton. A couple of the volunteers mentioned that, and a couple of the volunteers also requested that we do a stream cleanup. So we have that on our radar. I wrote up thank you cards for all of the dedicated volunteers that we have participating in the stream team. Remy and I also discussed purchasing gift cards, just like a $20 little gift card to Gardner's Supply Company as an extra thank you for going out, collecting those samples every week. The sites are mostly easy to get to, but some of them do have poison ivy and they're down steep slopes. So we just want to make sure that we are showing our gratitude to our volunteers so that we get them back year after year. It really helps to retain volunteers. So want to send out a little thank you to them. I have been working on posting more on our social media. So, Dave does a really great job at that, but just wanted to increase that social media presence and connecting with people. So posting about the Adopt a Drain program, about our water quality monitoring, a couple different programs that we have going on, obviously about the rain barrel workshop and things like that. So increasing that presence. And let's see, what else? Yeah, I think mostly we covered this. Remy and I both had a site. I did Indian 10 and Remy did the Indian Mill Pond. So both of our sites were in Essex and Colchester. So just participating in this stream team. Yeah, and then getting all of those samples out. I think that brings it to our budget and expense update. Remy, if you
Let's just see if anyone has any comments or questions on anything that you've covered so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm like speeding through this to be respectful of folks' time. So is there any questions, any concerns?
Adelaide, you might want to give an update as to the rain barrel workshop since we didn't meet since May.
Yeah.
Tell everyone how that went.
Yeah, so the rain barrel workshop was really great. Advertised that a bunch on the website and on social media. I also put out flyers at most of the town libraries and town halls. So I hope you guys saw them. We had 20 people participate. It's a little bit less than we kind of budgeted for, but I feel like that was a very manageable number considering that it was my first time running a rain barrel workshop. It was Remy's first time. So I did make one in advance to kind of make sure I knew how to do it, work out any of the kinks, but it was a really, really great learning experience for us. A lot of engagement. A couple of the people that came, they came and purchased one, and then they asked if they could purchase another one whenever they were there. We had a few people walk up just off the street and asked to participate. So that was really great. We hosted it in South Burlington on June 24th. Yeah, had 20 people participate. We did it in 2 separate sessions, a morning and an afternoon session with about 10 people each. We made $840 off of the workshop. So we priced the barrels at $40 a piece. That included the price of the materials and the time that it took to organize it. I think a lot of people learned a lot. And it also really contributes to that social diffusion aspect that we're looking for with stewardship and stormwater management and just getting people involved. I also attended a social media based marketing workshop for 3 days in June. And, that was one of the main things that we talked about, just having a visual representation of what you're trying to accomplish. So having, rain barrel at different people's homes, other people in the neighborhood will take notice of that and hopefully ask them, where did you get that? How can I get one? It creates that social diffusion and creates a social norm around water resource management. And it gets other people involved in the stream team. Yeah. Does anybody have any specific questions about some of the other things we've been working on? Can give you guys a little update on the adopted drain. So we don't have as many participants as we'd like. I'd, going for the pipe dream, I want to see every storm drain adopted. Right now we have 56 adopters. We have 75 drains adopted, and collectively, the last time I checked, it was 142 pounds of debris that have been collected, cleaned out, weighed. The debris that tumbles down the street picks up a lot of phosphorus and chloride as it makes its way through the watershed. So it's important that we're kind of clearing that out and educating people. And we can talk about it more in our initiatives to spend down the fiscal year 2022 budget. But we have a couple different creative strategies for getting more people involved in the Adopt the Drain program.
Great. So I guess,
I appreciate.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry, Chelsea.
no, go ahead. Go ahead, James.
I appreciate that update, Adelaide. I'm not sure if we've ever met, so hi. It's nice to see you.
Hi.
Perhaps we've had some email back and forth, but it's great to see you in person. Thanks for coming on board.
Of course, absolutely.
I think a little bit of chatter regarding Adopt a Drain, as I think Kirsten stepped off in Milton and her replacement's coming on board, is we might consider another round of outreach as a group. I don't know if anything's additional has been talked about or if that's where it is. So I just wanted to throw that out there and see if there was any other updates on that end.
Yeah. So, well, Remy and I kind of have spearheaded this and tried to get as many people involved as possible. We've tabled a little bit for it just at the Rain Barrel workshop and at our annual tree sale. We discussed sending out a mailer just to try to reach as many people as possible. And yeah, just trying to, continually post. I've tried to post, the day before it rains or a day of a big rainstorm, just so people see it on their social media, Facebook, Instagram. I think utilizing Front Porch Forum is something that we've used in the past that has actually garnered a lot of participants, interestingly. And then just that, face-to-face, just chatting with people and kind of convincing them that, yes, it does make an impact and it is really important. James, I just sent out a doodle poll this morning to try to find a convenient time for everybody to meet. Let me double check that I sent that along to you. It should have went to everybody that was on that email chain.
You probably did. The rain makes my job a doozy, so it's still catching up with stuff here.
No worries.
But that's a good thing. That's job security. I'm sure you sent it.
Of course. Let me double check in that email, but it should be in there. And we're looking to kind of set aside a time to really spearhead some creative ideas to get more folks on board with the Adoptive Drain.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
The other thing we've discussed is how to engage schools and universities a little bit more, with university students coming back. How can we engage some of those school groups that might be interested in taking some of this on, either, drains around campus or, classes that might be able to help with outreach or garnering support. So still trying to figure out what the best way to approach that is, but I think that, getting younger people involved, university students, high school students, might be a successful avenue as well.
Yeah. Or just, this is kind of easing into the things that we were proposing for the fiscal year 2022 budget spend down, but also just like if we can partner with a local business and really get like a focusing on a specific community and just trying to get as many people together as we can to go out and clean up a bunch of storm drains. If people see other people out there doing it, it kind of sparks this curiosity of like, what are they doing with the rake over there? So, you know, just being active about it might generate some interest and some potential adopters too. Thanks, Remy, for adding that. I think definitely grabbing a hold of the young people is a good way. Does anybody else have any questions or any thoughts? Okay. Let me see here. Make sure we didn't miss anything. We sent out a newsletter in June. I'm sure you guys all saw that. There's going to be another one coming out in mid-September. I mean, mid-August. So a couple of weeks here. That should be on its way as well. Other than that, that's sort of what we've been up to. Remy, do you want to go into the budget?
Yeah, I don't know if this is the best way to review the budget, but Dan, do you think you could share the draft budget that you sent out? That
Yeah.
might be better way to go about it.
Yeah.
So would it make sense for Dave, or no, Dave isn't giving an update. We're just talking about budget in general. Come on.
Right.
Go ahead.
Great, yeah, so as you all know, we've had a bit of a surplus in the stream team budget, particularly this year. You know, we didn't even spend down the remaining FY21 funds until December. So that is, you know, mainly due to a lot of staff turnover within the district. In the past year, we've had a full staff turnover in district manager, conservation specialist, and agriculture specialist. So that kind of stretched us over capacity in terms of hiring, onboarding, that whole process kind of cyclical throughout the year. And so that's definitely kind of slowed our ability to spend the full budget down. That being said, since Adelaide has come on, in the past 3 to 4 months, we've spent $14,000 of our FY 2022 budget, which is about half of what we had budgeted. So, you know, as district manager, one thing that I'm really trying to prioritize now that we have you know, a great staff on board, you know, we're all sort of growing into our positions, but really sort of paring down some of the responsibilities of the conservation specialist to really prioritize the stream team and ensure that we meet the committee's expectations and budget our time appropriately. You know, with the change in district managers, Kristen had to sort of take on a lot of the training and, you know, other responsibilities that she didn't typically have under her umbrella. So, you know, now I feel like we're in a much better place. You know, I'm feeling very comfortable in my position. Adelaide and I are kind of splitting responsibilities on a few different things. And so we're able to kind of support each other in each of these projects and programs that we have going on. And so I feel much more confident, you know, setting a realistic budget and having the time to sort of meet those expectations. So as of the end of June, we still had about $12,000 in our FY 2022 budget to spend down. And as of the end of July, that is about $10,000. So, based on, our closest projections, Adelaide and I are thinking that we can spend down that remainder of funding by October or November, by prioritizing a number of sort of activities and outreach efforts, and sort of working together to sort of highlight the stream team and really prioritize it this fall. And so then that leaves the remainder of FY 2022. We were thinking of somewhere in the $20,000 range, about a little over $2,000 for administrative costs, about $6,000 for outreach, and then the bulk of that would be project development and implementation at around $12,000. I think that would work out to be about 50 hours a month. And looking at the previous year's budgets, it seems like that's about where how many hours were budgeted. So that's sort of where we're at. We're moving at a strong rate. In the past 3-4 months, spending down $14,000. We're going to try and keep that up, and really, spend down the remainder of the FY 2022 budget and head into FY 2024 with a relatively clean slate.
I do want to add that I don't think it's just your staff turnover. I think COVID prevented some of that from getting spent too, and being able to outreach and have those kind of events. I mean, because we had those discussions with Annie, with separate meetings with Annie and I about, especially with Kristen too, some of the struggles, and that prevented some of the budget being spent in the way that it normally would have. So I think there's two factors there.
Right, that's a good point. Thanks, Chelsea.
Yeah.
Do we want to go into detail of how we intend, just the initiatives that we plan on taking to spend down the FY 22 budget?
Yeah, that would be good.
Do you mind if I screen share? Thank you.
Go ahead.
Sorry, lots of documents. Where is it? Yes, here we go. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yeah. Great.
So, yep, as we mentioned, so the initial budget was $28,110. We've spent down a significant amount of that. We still have about $10,544.88 left to spend down. So Remy and I have really brainstormed how to spend down that money. And then we also have generated a proposed fiscal year 23 budget. So at the absolute latest, we intend to have this spent down by the end of November. It's probably going to be more like October, but we wanted to give ourselves that little bit of extra wiggle room. But we're definitely working on it, and we have projects that are ongoing that are going to help contribute to that. So I'll kind of just go down this list. Feel free to read into it. One of them is creating informational signage at the Rain Garden in Milton that was put in last year. We were working with Kirsten. We'll now be working with Nick to get that going. We'd like to get that sign generated and put in this summer. And also we've been communicating with Christine in Williston about putting a rain garden in. So at the Village Community Park, we have a meeting set for later this week to discuss the logistics of that. So that's coming down the pike, which is exciting. We also are interested in hosting a stream cleanup. So Centennial Brook is one of the main streams that has been brought to our attention, just has a lot of litter, a couple of different stream team monitors, volunteers have brought it up to us that we should do a stream cleanup there. So working on organizing that. We'd also like to host another rain barrel workshop. I just got another email from a gentleman that was interested, missed the one in June, and just wanted to follow up to see if we were going to be hosting another one. We do have extra supplies for about 10 to 15 extra barrels, so we can do a small workshop. I'd like to focus it somewhere besides South Burlington, just to kind of spread the resources. But we do have extra supplies for doing another rain barrel workshop. And now that we sort of have one under our belt, I think it'll be less time intensive to plan, which will be great. And then that provides a tabling opportunity as well.
And that should probably be in a town that is not a part of Adopt a Drain.
Yep, so maybe like Winooski or Williston or Milton. So we'll focus on those. But also everybody is welcome, to attend. It doesn't have to just be for the town that hosts it.
Correct.
I needed a little clarification on that last time. Thanks, Chelsea. So yep, working on tabling. We're connecting with the folks to work and to table at the Champlain Valley Fair. I think, a lot of people come to the Champlain Valley Fair, and that's a really good spot for us to position ourselves to kind of engage in that outreach and education that we're focused on. Somewhere in the ag building, just to, get the right people. Also completing the La Rosa Partnership Program Water Quality Monitoring Initiative. So wrapping that up, that's kind of one thing that will help us spend down the budget, and that's nearly finished now. Again, sending out the gift cards, some of this we talked about earlier, engaging in social media with education. We'd also be really interested in hosting an aquatic bio blitz. So this is an idea that we had that we could host in one of the towns on one of the creeks. I've hosted a lot of, macroinvertebrate ID workshops and events, and kind of just having people join. This could be a really great way to get kids involved, kids and parents, bring them out to their local stream, do a little bit of macroinvertebrate identification, explore what insects and macroinvertebrates we have in this stream, looking at terrestrial plants, just looking at, is the stream polluted, or is it a relatively clean stretch of stream or waterway in the community, and then kind of getting into the answer of why, if it's polluted, how is it being polluted, and what you can do to help. And then we talked about launching the Adopt a Drain, just partnering with a local business or with the schools to get more Adopt a Drain press. Remy did a really great job having a news interview. So that's one thing that we worked on, but I think just partnering with more people to get the word out will be really effective, and then creating an Adopt a Drain mailer.
That was a really good interview, Remy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So these are sort of the initiatives that we have to spend down the remainder of that budget. If anybody has any feedback, or they think that's probably not where we should be focusing our attention, or if that's a really great idea, we are totally open to feedback. If there's anything that you think we're missing, all ears for any feedback that you may have. Now, or feel free to shoot us an email in the future.
As you continue to consider Centennial, just please do keep me in the loop on that. When we have a better idea of the exact reaches and when, I can try to add my 2 cents on the Burlington side.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be great. Really interested in kind of hammering down a place to meet and a specific stretch of Centennial Brook to focus on and clean up. If you have any ideas on which stretch needs the most love, we're open to that as well. Okay. Well, I will stop sharing now and we can move into the next order of business. Is that the fiscal year 23 budget proposal?
Yep, well, we have, so you just reviewed FY 22.
Mhm.
Expected FY 23 budget, do you have that?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay,
Remy, do you want to share your screen and go over this? I worked on it and I can speak to the specific, tasks. I'm not sure in these meetings how granular or in depth you go on each specific task. I focused heavily on just reviewing the 22 budget and kind of gauging what we should be spending based on how the 22 budget was structured, but keeping in mind that we're really only working with about 8 months for 23 and not a whole calendar, 12 months.
Mhm.
So do you go line by line or? We also propose a
I
work.
think we can kind of go line by line and just, outline where we're going to be spending and,
Yeah.
how that breakdown will be.
Okay,
so
Um,
Andy and I
mine
go
is
over that
something
work
very-
plan with you.
What's that,
awesome.
Chelsea?
I was just saying, Andy and I go over that work plan with you, so you don't need to do that in this meeting. The
Yeah,
committee trusts us to go over that.
yeah, one thing that jumped out at me was just it's got 12 monthly, I realize it's a carryover from the previous year, but it's got 12 monthly reports, whereas hypothetically it's
Oh, yep.
8 or 9,
Well, yeah,
and stuff.
So for the budgeting, we did take that into account. It usually takes, the monthly reports are pretty quick, about an hour. So we budgeted for an hour for the 8 monthly reports that we'll do, and then about 6 hours for the annual report.
Okay,
So-
it's just confusing because it says 12,
Yeah, that we should
so
take
just
that
change
out.
it to read 8 or something.
well, it's also, your title says FY 22, so we're looking at the right document. Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
This is the 23 budget.
Yeah, so the hours are correct, it's just
Yeah.
throws me off because it says 12.
Yep, we'll change this to 8. Thanks for catching that, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then attending the sub meetings, we also accounted for this for 8 meetings. Just having a little bit of extra wiggle room on, before or after budgeted 4 hours just for preparing for those meetings. Conducting the expense tracking. So this, again, is Remy's. It takes a little bit over an hour to prepare each expense tracking report for the meeting. So we budgeted 10 hours for that. All of these are at $50 an hour. So it's just the number of hours times 50 is how we're getting our estimated costs. Let me see here. Yep, so planning the meetings and just responding to emails and kind of being in communication with people. We budgeted about 7 hours. So for all administrative tasks for fiscal year 23, taking into account that it's going to be 8 months and not 12, we allotted 43 hours for administrative tasks at about $2,000. Moving down into the outreach section. So this was blank, this section for increased revenue. Summary of donations, it was blank in 2022. So I just left it blank in 2023. I'm assuming that would just be, any donations that we're expecting to receive. There's not any.
Right, we just don't want to count on that as part of the budget, so it's only to track if you were to receive something.
Okay, that's the way that I interpreted it, but thank you
Yeah.
so much for the clarification, Chelsea. Great. So increasing our media coverage. So let me see here. Last year, in 2022, it was at 30 hours. and 1,500 for the increasing media coverage. The way that I see it, it only takes about 15 to 20 minutes to make like a social media post. And if we're posting twice a month, every other week, depending on, you know, how much content that we have, I think that 30 is a little bit overestimated. So I bumped that down by a bit to 12 to just over $1,000. I think that's really, really reasonable. And then there's another section for updating the website. So just our summary of outreach, developing our promotional materials in 2022. It was 10 hours, so I just scaled this back considering that we're not working on a 12-month basis. We're only working on 8. So 7 hours, $350. Things that would be included in this would just be, you know, information that we can hand out at tabling events. If we wanted to create a mailer for the Adopt a Drain program, might be covered under developing our promotional materials. Fostering partnerships. So this is just working with other groups that would help encourage the mission of the Rethink Runoff Stream team. So last year it was at 30 hours. I bumped it down to 12 hours. I would really like to focus more on project development and implementation rather than you know, some of these other tasks. So this is one area where I sort of scaled this down just so that we had a little bit more time allotted for projects. So maintaining the Rethink Runoff webpage. It was at 10 for 2022. I think 6 is appropriate, given that we're working on a shorter time period here. Dave Barron from Pluck also does a really, really wonderful job at maintaining the website. So the things that we would be looking at for web maintenance would really just be, you know, updating the data once we have it for the stream team monitoring, posting any events or workshops that we might be having, increasing information on any new projects that we start to work on, like signage at our rain gardens, things like that.
Adelaide, the only thing I'll mention too, to go along with the promotional
Please.
items, you know, we just ordered a bunch of the t-shirts and the hats, so that expense is going to be fairly minimal. But one thing that Adelaide and I have been discussing is how to really promote the stream team and Rethink Runoff through the district's tree sale as well. We get about 800 orders each year. And so, you know, putting together a little one-pager, or, you know, there's already some outreach materials that we have, but how to just kind of include some of our other initiatives through that promotion, because it's a great group of people that are typically interested in purchasing the trees. So how do we get them involved in the stream team?
Yeah, absolutely. And Remy, just to give the rest of the committee some insight and to piggyback on that, you know, we have another grant. It's called Storm Smart. It helps, you know, homeowners and small businesses manage their stormwater. It basically makes recommendations to implement low-tech solutions for capturing and redirecting stormwater. So while I was at a site visit doing an assessment for that grant, I was chit-chatting with the homeowner about the stream team and about, you know, what we do through the Rethink Runoff stream team. His name's Brian Chatwin. He came and bought a rain barrel during the rain barrel workshop. He actually bought 2. He also learned about a lot of the projects that we do through the district's newsletter, and he had purchased plants at the annual plant sale. So I feel like there's just a lot of overlap, you know, with the people that we connect with and the folks that we have been reaching out to through the stream team. So I think kind of having some overlap, some organized and structured overlap with the plant sale to make programs like Adopt a Drain more well known is a really, really advantageous move that we can do. Thanks for bringing that up, Remy. Great idea.
Okay, I think we're just gonna move through because it's almost 1 o'clock.
Okay.
So,
So the rest of this is pretty straightforward, you know, doing the newsletter through MailChimp, attending outreach events. A lot of this is pretty fairly structured off of what we had proposed in 2022. Where it does differ is in projects. So stormwater events, I think that can get a little bit more attention. So just having the good summary of our annual and quarterly reports, and then managing our stream team. I let this be the same as 2022, even though we're working on a shorter time period. It requires a lot of work, and I think that it should stay at the same number of hours, 75. Managing the Adopt a Rain Garden is slightly lower from 30 hours to 21, just because a lot of the rain gardens are established, they're in good place. This week I'm working on connecting with the stewards of Adopt a Rain Garden, making sure that every rain garden has been adopted and is in good shape. Replying to public inquiry is pretty standard and is set from 2022. So as a total administrative hours is 43. The outreach is 114, and then the most hours allotted is for our projects. So there's a cost breakdown, and that brings our personal subtotal to $19,300 with a little excess built in for mileage and supplies. So aiming for a budget of $20,500 for fiscal year 23. I think that this is more attainable. It's really well structured. We have a clear path on how we want to spend these funds. So I don't think we'll be in the same position we've been in the past 2 years with trying to spend down the budget in the next fiscal year.
okay. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, thanks guys for your time.
So moving to rethink runoff, Dave, your FY23 budget.
Sure. Can I share?
Mhm.
Okay. So we did kind of a twofold where we re-upped what we've done in the last year, which is more of a maintenance with social media. So this first part up here is basically kind of the current budget. It's, you know, general maintenance, ad buying, ad placement, monitoring, digital web maintenance meetings, and then there's the social media content development component that we also did this past year. The second potential part is new creative, new campaign. This was based off of what was the 2017 budget from when we rolled out. Like the first year we took over runoff was kind of create the site, start some of the ads. Year 2 was creating the animation pieces, bringing that in, and then kind of rolling that out into both advertising, digital broadcast, and things like that. And again, it's, you know, a new video, new radio ads, you know, print, poster, landing pages. So we scaled it up just a little bit, given from the 5 years. That's the gist of these two. And then our media buy, we just right now ballparked it at the same amount that we did last year for 26,000. Again, these fall, winter, spring breakdowns are kind of rough on guidelines. So our next step in the next month would be to kind of hash those out and figure out where those sit. I know Dan mentioned to me after I sent this that budget constraints might be in issue for some of these if we're operating, you know, over what we had scheduled again with the survey. So that's pretty much the general overview. Our goal for the creative would be to launch it in the spring, so we wouldn't be starting it right away either. just so everybody kind of knows. Typically it's like through the winter, and then since spring is our larger ad buy, that's when we'd be pushing that out.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Mhm.
So I see, Dan, you have action under pluck, but not the district. For
Yeah,
budget,
correct, only because right now they're still spending down their FY20.
okay,
So that was part of the rationale, but technically Dave does need a new contract
Yeah.
for FY23, although we could just do an interim measure and say, go ahead and work on these tasks, we'll figure out the.
so I guess,
allocation.
does anyone have any questions for Dave, with what he's proposing here?
I have a quick question on task B, animated spot. Is that a single spot?
It would kind of, I haven't really said like dialed that in. I mean, I think our goal would be to probably replicate some kind of structure that we did the last time, where technically we have 3 spots, but 95% of it is the same across all 3, if that makes sense. I
Right,
guess at this point,
I just see it as, if I was to just look at this document by itself, I'd say a single spot for 60 hours for a single spot.
that's pretty, yeah, that's accurate. I mean, if we're, if you're also, concepting blends in a couple things. So concepting is not only the goals of the campaign, but what our call to action is. Are we actually going to try to structure people to do something, or are we just pushing them to the site? I think with year 2, previously, we were just kind of pushing them to the site. Then the larger question is, if we are redoing spots, to what degree are we kind of creating new assets for it? Are we just replicating with the current look? Are we literally using the existing art we have, which we've already done, or are we kind of expanding or reworking some of that? That includes, so the illustration component, the storyboard component, the physical animating component, the voiceover component, and the sound design component are kind of like all grouped in there. And I think like going back to that 3 out of 1 piece, I think that was a situation, and we can kind of look to replicate that, where everything except 2.5 seconds on all 3 spots is the same. We kind of replicated one little piece to kind of give us that flexibility, and we can definitely look at that again. But I wouldn't go so far as to say like we're having 3 separate spots on this. And then the other question is, again, if we're going through it from a YouTube or broadcast standpoint, and then we're repurposing that for social media. Today, we've paused the missed drops tip of the month, only because we started to kind of roll over and not run out of tips, but they were very similar. So we just kind of like backburnered it for a little bit. So then the question is, can we repurpose this in a way that gives us more leverage on social media? We want to definitely, the proportions are different as well. It's kind of a, your television set versus like a square. So that comes into the production as well. So it's kind of like the quick and dirty overview of it.
Yeah.
Right. In the interest of time, it might be good for the committee to authorize just the year 2 general tasks.
Mhm.
And then we'll deal with the other stuff later, because after I give my next overview, you will see that we're kind of in a budgetary jam, just based upon some required items and some expansion of items. That's all. It's somewhat of a timing issue. I have nothing against new creative. It's just overlapping with the same year we have to run the survey. So,
Don't we have a surplus? I'm confused because I thought,
well, let me go through that, but the surplus is in part an accrual to cover the survey. So in other words, we bank that money. So let me go over the budget, unless you want to just take action on this or do it after.
I think we should go over the budget and take action
Okay.
after.
Can I just so I can mention one thing too, and I kind of figured we would kind of walk out of here with like a general approval and maybe relooking at the creative. If we find that the budget, and that was kind of what I was talking about with Dan earlier, wouldn't support this, if there is a number that we are looking, I can kind of take a look and see what we may be able to do for that. Again, like this stuff is kind of, we would probably want to start it in like October, November. So it's not like we need something like right this instant, but but we can kind of, again, like table review and rediscuss.
No, I think we can. I think we can come to a finalizing something certainly by then. You know, just
Okay.
it's jammed up.
Okay, so I think that we should hold on taking action until we,
Christine's got her hand up.
oh, sorry. I couldn't see it.
Sorry, just would like some, a little more, was hoping for some more information. I see, you took it down now,
I'll put it back up.
David, but the, there's a line item under there for, yeah, so thank you. You have a line item here under task D for the general, you know, web maintenance, content updates, some money being there. I guess try to explain to me a little bit more. I mean, are we not creating content? Because it looks like, again, down in year 2 creative, you're asking for, you know, money for creative content as well, for creating new content. So do we not, are you not creating new content in part of that task D as well?
Depends on the
or-
year and what requests are made through the year. So like, for example, last year, yes, we went through and kind of rewrote almost the entire site in some ways from, you know, we reevaluated it from an SEO standpoint. If you look at like the web maintenance content updates serve both a technical and a content function. So there are some times where we're restructuring or reevaluating parts of the site from like a URL or a backend perspective, which lumps into that a little bit. And then in addition, this is where some of these tasks kind of get a little intertwined. Our design services for the stream team can also flow into the websites, whether it's events, relooking at the events portal. So there is kind of like a little bit of back and forth between those tasks. The web updates for the campaign, we would be, again, looking at what call to actions we may want. I mean, it's kind of like putting numbers before we have explicit marching orders, but the difference between those two is that web updates for the campaign could be as far as like, I don't want to say a microsite on a different URL, but a series of pages specific to the campaign. We had like a minor campaign a couple of years ago where we focused on endangered animals in the
Right.
waterways. And so that included a specific piece for that landing page that gives us the ability to kind of track through who's clicking down to those. That's kind of the difference between, so there are contents being kind of consistently made, but a lot of times we're not necessarily generating stuff from scratch in the year to year.
And so you're asking for separate funding to create all new content
In task E,
in year 2 creative.
yes.
Just something we typically do that every couple of years. I think probably Dan speaking to the timing of it happens to be the same year we're doing it. Right, Dan? That's what you're about to talk about? Same
Yes.
time as the survey that we need to do every couple of years?
Yep.
I mean, I would say like, if you look at those outside of the social media content development for general, tasks A through D, they're all kind of mired together in some way. You know, we're doing, you know, if we're looking at the annual report, developing that, we're also looking at the metrics, which also might influence something else. So, you know, typically we do try to kind of separate those tasks a bit in billing, but, you know, I would say like everything with Stream Team overlaps for the most part into web and or social media anyways. So we try to identify them as best we can, but I would say like our general activities, a lot of them do overlap a bit.
Thanks.
All right, Dave, you can stop the share and then I'll jump in the
Yep.
budget. here.
So I do think we're not going to get through the entire agenda, but it's important today to talk about the budget. So I think we're probably going to need to be tabling 5 and
Yep.
6. But so let's spend the last 15 minutes sorting this out.
Right, okay, so I typically do about 60 to 70 hours, usually budgeted somewhere, budgeted about 80 in the past. But with the RFP, that's usually, process of double checking the questions with you guys and managing the contractor, and the RFP will be relatively quick to get out, but it's the managing of the responses and the review of that. So that's why my hours are increased, on that. It could come in at 90 hours instead of 100, who knows? The cost we did last time is actually around 17 grand. So obviously things have changed in 5 years. So to be on the safe side, I boosted it to 18. The ad buy amount is the same. There's nothing sacrosanct about that. We haven't been sued since 2003 by anybody saying that the ad amount is too little and therefore in violation of an MS-4 permit. So, I mean, there is flexibility on that. You can always cut back the ad buy. And then there's Dave's numbers in there. And Dave, I got 30,000 when I added everything up, not 30,600 or whatever. So double check your math on that. And then there's the stream team amount there. So the surplus is maybe we have more. I'll have to check the surplus numbers. It's sort of a game of, yeah, like how you do it. But we have some outstanding expenses. But right now, that's what the checking account balance is. We know we have some things we have to pay here in the next little bit. And then, yeah, so that accrued money is in the bank, as it were. That's what makes up part that, of this $31,000, $12,000 represents money we've accrued. But anyway, the overall take-home message, our typical amount has been, dues have been, we've done 5,500, we've done 6,000, and we've done, I think we did 7,000 in 1 year, several years ago. Maybe 5 years ago. So there's a little bit of a gap and all that. And then certainly, some of the accrued savings is because NRCD wasn't billing as much too. There's another way to look at it too. So anyway, that's kind of like the overall picture. If you put in all the hypothetical expenses and stuff. So that's where we are.
So our total budget is for being proposed is 117,000, but we
Yeah.
only bring in $72,000 in dues. You're saying?
Like typically the last 2 years, we've done 6,000 in dues. Yeah, so it's easy to, you raise it another $1,000 and you go from there. Christine has a question.
Yeah, I have a couple questions here, Dan, because this seems that what's reflected in here with the 5-year survey, that's included in this. I guess this budget doesn't really, it's kind of hard to follow because we have some information in here. I see where we have a total the total proposed at about 117,000. We have a balance, though, it sounds like, of roughly 32,000, which I don't see reflected in this budget. 31,000, almost 32,000. I don't see that reflected in this budget, which I think is important because some of the money that we have allocated and been saving up would reduce, we have it, right? So when we're looking at this 117,000, we're not really dividing that by 12 and asking for dues associated with that because we have a surplus, if I'm following this correctly.
Yeah, I have to kind of, right, so our surplus may be, sorry, I'm just trying, because we normally also set aside another 5,000 in this fiscal year. So the surplus, I suppose one way to look at it is, maybe I probably stand corrected here. The surplus is probably closer to 30,000 because that's
Yeah.
already there in the bank. It's just allocated towards the survey. So,
Right.
right. So the true surplus would be, let me take that out. So, yeah, the true surplus is 30,410.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But it's not necessarily a surplus because we've been putting money away.
Right,
so
it was
we
just,
can for this
right.
survey.
And
So I
that's
think-
what we,
I think
the
what you
reason
were
it's got
fl-
confused, the reason it's just confusing is that over the last couple of years, I always made the point of like, look, it looks like we have cash on hand surplus, but don't forget, we have to save that money for the, we have to save that money for the
Yes.
survey. So that's essentially what we're doing here, so.
Sure, and I think you were right by saying that there's 18,000 that's still theoretically above and beyond, you know, because we have 12,000 allocated for that. I think, you know, then, you know, the other areas, you know, that this is a special event and that we have a survey going on. You know, but the administrative, what we're requesting for administrative oversight from CCRPC, you know, according to the agreement, it was supposed to target approximately 10% of our budget. So this is, I don't think necessarily a good reflection of what's being requested, because that 18,000 really isn't your administrative oversight. That's coming from the survey, right? So that we'd like to see that separated out. It looks like you're really the administrative costs are going to be the 10,000, which
Yep.
brings us a lot closer to that 10%.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of a question of who pays it. I mean, yeah, it's a separate other line. These here, the web hosting, the incidentals and and the survey costs are other vendors that we pay directly. So if you really wanted to
Right.
separate it out, you could call this you know, other vendors and create a new color. You know.
Well, I think it would be important to, I mean, when
Yeah, I
just
can do
looking
that,
at the
sure.
agreement to try to make sure that we're really kind of trying to meet the intentions of it.
Yep. Yep, I can separate that out.
And then, so, because we also have, Pluck is asking for a significant increase in their operating budget this year. And I don't want to just, you know, say no to the request or,
Right.
you know, when there's a little bit of surplus there. But, you know, we do have this survey, we don't have an actual estimate on it. So I think we should reserve some of the funds that are in surplus to cover potential overruns on the survey. We're increasing the estimate $1,000, but 5 years later, and the cost of everything's up, I think more significant than that. I think 20,000 would probably be more appropriate for that. And you know, we could look at, and that would probably bring us closer to that 15,000 in surplus that we could really look at allocating out to other places.
Yeah, and to some extent, just so you know, like the standard amount we had, you know, was typically in the neighborhood. The overall master agreement with Pluck has been 25,000
Right.
in all, and then and it typically was the maintenance year was, you know, 9, 10, 11, 12,000 depending. And then, but the social media content development, that's a new item that we weren't doing years ago, that stuff.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
you
but
guys-
we sort of need to do that in order to.
oh yeah, no, I know. And
Yeah.
it's right. So all the stuff is good. It's just how much can we do? That's all.
Right, yes. How much can we
Well,
dedicate to it?
And
Right,
are
and I
you
think
guys
that's-
willing to have the dues increased by $1,000 or something?
Well, I think we need to really look at where that money is going. So, you know, one of the concerns that I have is, you know, some of the activities by the stream team, such as, you know, the water quality monitoring program, that's really not necessarily a requirement of this group, and was something that the and DEC has really dropped. We chose to carry it on for other, you know, well, some groups, some MS-4s decided to continue with that. But that's not necessarily part of the scope of what we're charged to do as a group. than monitoring. So I don't know that that's necessarily a good use of our funds. And the same, I think, could be said about adopt a drain. I don't think that we're all participating in that. I think it has its value, but I don't think that it's necessarily something that, I think it's a little bit outside of our scope of what we're here to actually what we're here to do as far as education outreach. And that is so specific. We have these little programs that are so specific to just individual communities. I have concerns about those programs being funded by quack.
Yep.
But I bring that to the table as a discussion point more than
Right.
more than anything.
Okay,
I can speak to that a little bit. Christine, I completely see where you're coming from. There's not a lot of water quality monitoring going on in Williston. However, I do feel like it's a important program to keep going just because it does get people out and involved, and that's how they're learning, by engagement. So I feel like it's a worthwhile program to keep going, especially because it does facilitate education.
I appreciate your thoughts on that. The DEC has made a determination that they weren't going to continue it because they didn't see the value in it and the intentions of the objectives. I understand from an outreach perspective, you may feel that there's value in it. And we chose as a community not to participate because we have our reasons for it. But one of the main reasons being that DEC said they weren't going to look at the information. And they're not going to take, they're not taking anything off of the impaired list from the information that's being collected. If anything, I think it runs a risk to the community to have, volunteers out there taking samples and collecting data, because you really could be, you're basically heading the state information about your water quality. And the only time that they're going to take action with that information is if they find negative, results. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
not to
We don't
cut
see
you
the
off,
value
but
in that.
seeing the time, I just need to make clear what the next steps are and what decisions the group needs to make today.
I understand that, Chelsea. This
Yeah.
budget was presented to us at 4 o'clock yesterday, 4:20 yesterday.
Yeah.
Not even providing 24 hours to review it. And
Yeah, we're
we're
not
asking to
looking
be
for, I
voted
wasn't
on
looking
it.
for action on the overall budget. That was just to
Okay.
help you decide what to do about Dave's budget. That's all. So I wanted to.
Okay, understood.
So Dan, you were saying we don't need.
I mean, for formality's sake, you should do some sort of motion authorizing me to issue an interim task order to Dave so he can get started.
Okay.
Because
the group-
Stream Team is okay for now because they're still working off their FY22
Correct.
authorization.
So does the group feel comfortable issuing a task order for at least the general, I forget what there was, you had it phrased, Dave.
Just year 2 general.
Year 2 general, which is the minimum requirements for minimum measure 1 to keep the program running, correct? That's how you have it pretty much organized?
So we could do one of two things. We could do year 2 general with social media, or year 2 general without social media, if we want to kind of push it. I mean, I've made some posts, but they're minor in the last month. It could be that, and again, like if we're looking at budget, we can push and pull. So either one is, so that would either be, gosh, I'm trying to calculate this out right now. 17.6 would be with social media, which is kind of like,
No, there is no, it's 17,000 even. Your math is wrong.
8, 5, and 5. Okay. Yep. Okay. I see what you're saying.
I understand there's a need to make a vote on this, but I think at this point, we should be requesting a special meeting to have a vote on this budget. And we should have an updated budget presented to us to meet whatever objectives that you feel is necessary to continue to keep Pluck in place. and doing their tasks. I feel that if I'm not mistaken, we're already in the fiscal year. So, but this is a topic we should have been talking about months ago. So we're already pretty far behind on it. I would propose that we schedule a special meeting 2 weeks from now with an updated budget to be presented to us no later than the end of this week, so that we have an opportunity to look through it and we can take a vote at that time on the request and what needs to be voted on to keep Pluck engaged in their activities.
I hear what you're saying, Christine, but I think that we can vote on at least something. I mean, we already have a contract in place with Dave and Pluck. We can vote on something, a task order, just to keep him afloat. And I do agree that we should get some information to look over in time for September's meeting, which doesn't fall on Labor Day, does it?
No,
Okay,
it's the day after.
okay. Could you share your screen again, Dave?
Yeah. I mean, if it's easiest, I would, if we suggest doing just tasks A through D. I can like pause social media if we want to kind of re-examine that.
Well, I don't think anyone's against social media.
I mean, I guess my question is, should I not have been doing any work last month? I'm not really sure. I didn't.
No, you're fine. Don't worry
No,
about it.
you're okay.
Okay.
The timing issue. We have an overall master agreement with you, so it's not.
Okay.
And normally, as Dan mentioned, this wouldn't be a problem. It's just the timing.
Yeah. Yeah.
A creative year and a survey year at once. is
Yeah.
The problem. So what are the committee's thoughts on doing a
The total for task A
17.
through E is 17,000 even.
Yeah. It's not 17.6.
So if we have an overall contract in place, then what is the difference between the overall contract that's in place and what you're asking us to vote on today? It seems to me that there's already a
The overall
contract in
contract,
place.
the overall master agreement is between CCRPC and Pluck, and it sets a maximum of $25,000 per year. And it says we will do a task order for each fiscal year. So all I'm trying to do is get your blessing to issue a task order. And in this case, it's sort of it's an initial task order, which we'll amend later once we figure out how much of the new creative you guys can stomach.
Right.
It's not an official contract, Chris. It's an agreement that says like, you guys don't have to go through an RFP every year
Yes.
for this. With like every 5 years you do, but like years 2 through 5, you can just vote here to say, you know.
Right. So, but I guess the point that I was trying to tease out is that there was already an agreed upon amount that
Yes.
was kind of overviewing it. And so.
Yeah, there's a range, that's set of a max of 25,000 in Dave's cost, not excluding vendors and stuff.
So I think we need to go ahead and just make a motion to would you say a temporary, or what was the
No,
word?
it's just the task order, and we'll amend it later.
Task order that we'll amend in the future, or probably next meeting. The task order will include 2022, 2023 year 2 general tasks A through E is what I'm suggesting to the group.
That's A through E, and it's 17,000 and not.
Yep,
17.
17,000 in the amount.
Yep.
Which will be revisited. The creative year 2 creative will be revisited in September.
Yep.
Can I get a motion for that? Anyone?
I'll make a motion. Ryan Lambert, Winooski.
Thank you, Ryan. Can I get a second?
I will second. This is Lonnie from UVM.
Thank you, Lonnie. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? So moved. Can you stop sharing your screen, please, Dave?
Mhm.
Thank you. All right. So we are past the end time. Unfortunately, we are going to have to table 5 and 6. Is there any brief updates anyone wants to bring up, or should I call the meeting adjourned? So next meeting, we will be focusing on the budget. So if we can get that in advance, Dan.
Yeah,
And,
we'll have things more, part of it is just, it's the crossover at the end of the fiscal year. So
Yep.
it's always a little awkward at this time.
Okay,
So,
and then we'll keep items 5 and 6 on for September as well.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? All right, thank you everyone for hanging on.
Thanks.
Good day. Bye.